All right. Well, first
Sure.
question I have for you is there a singular moment when you remember thinking, maybe even back in the early days of, wow, we're making really iconic television here as it relates to the X Files?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments. There were a lot of moments like that. I mean, from, Robin Williams dropping by the set, and I guess he was a huge fan of the show, and I wasn't there. Unfortunately, they were shooting an exterior downtown Vancouver, and I guess he just happened upon the set, and turns out he was a huge fan of the show. I mean, to hear stories like that, and then about Steven Spielberg being a fan of the show, and so many people that to me are iconic. Uh, had that kind of interest in what we were doing. That was a pretty
Yeah, I
good
think
clue right there.
when you have Stephen King writing scripts for you, it's for real.
Again, yeah, yeah, and I was like I'm such a huge Stephen King fan, and I didn't get to do that episode, and I didn't get to meet him, and I was really bummed about that. But for my birthday, Frank and Chris actually had Stephen autograph a book for me, and he submitted put a little inscription that was very, very sweet, and I was very appreciative of it. It was like such a huge thing. I've got it wrapped in plastic now, so it never can
This
happen to
question actually came from one of my coworkers who, when I told her that I was talking to you, was just like so excited. She just discovered the show like a year ago, and I find that whole thing fascinating. But she wanted to know, do you think the Skinner character was set up from the beginning to eventually become an ally to Mulder and Scully? Because for the first couple of seasons, he definitely felt like an almost antagonistic.
Yeah, well, I think it was set up to start, for him to start out looking that way, and that type. But I mean, that's the type of character he was too. He was very by the by the rules and by the book, and and what transpired over the evolution of the character was huge for him as a person. The changes in his personality and his beliefs and his behavior. Because a lot of the stuff that he ended up doing later on was stuff that you can't even imagine him doing at the beginning of the arc of that character. So I think that he was originally no, I think he was originally meant to look like a roadblock to them, but as time went on, they started seeing the potential and the value of him as an ally to Mulder and Scully because they
Yes.
certainly needed one. So I think that just evolved, and then I was actually I've been watching the show with my daughter. She's 14, and we're just letting her watch the show now. So it's been such a treat for me to be able to sit down and watch some of the episodes. And I was watching the episode where the cigarette smoking man is in my office, Mulder's in my office, and it turns out that I realize the cigarette smoking man has been lying to me, has been wiretapping Mulder's phones, and that just doesn't. That's not. That doesn't go. That doesn't sit well with Skinner. That's not the way he operates. And when he realizes that, and he says, "Get out of my office," and the cigarette smoking man thinks that he's telling Mulder to get out of his office, and then he realizes he's telling him to get out of his office. That is the beginning, I think, of a wonderful relationship between the three of us. I mean, I think that really started off things. I think is in changing the direction
Well, I know
that
this wasn't a
that
part of
Skinner was
the
headed.
questions that I had planned for you, but since you brought it up, what has your daughter thought of the show? I mean, 14, that's probably around the time a lot of people started watching this show on through the years. So, what does she think about seeing her old man on TV like that?
She thinks it's pretty cool. She loves the show. She loves it. And going to one of your other questions about you were asking about support of the fans in the last film, and the response of the audience. Probably one of the highlights of my participation and my career in general has been sitting in that theater at the premiere of the last movie, and I had my wife and daughter with me, and my daughter had never seen. She had never watched the show, and when she was little, she was on the set a lot, but she didn't remember a lot of that stuff. But as you stated at the premiere, when Skinner came onto the screen and the audience just went ballistic, and I didn't even care about that. All I did was I turned and I looked at my daughter, and her face was just, she was like, she looked at me, she was so proud, and I was like, that was the defining moment of my career right there, to see the response from my daughter, who I adore. Her response to what I had done for 8-9 years, and it was like that made everything worth.
Have you heard these stories though about how people reacted when Skinner came on screen? I mean, I probably saw the film in theaters 2 or 3 times, and every single time people lost their mind. And it's not crazy to think, but it's just so heartening to know that after all these years, like, these people were still so invested in this story. And your character in particular, and I think everyone kept it a really a good secret, and it was a shock. And every time people lost their minds about it. It was crazy.
They kept it. It was such a secret that I didn't even get a ride to the premiere. I had to take the subway. I was walking off the subway through those crowds into the theater, and I said, you know what? If it gets too hairy, I'm going to turn around and go back home. But they didn't even want to send me a car, because they didn't want people to think that I was going to that I was in it, or had to have any inkling that I was in it. That was all fine, but yeah, it was. I saw that response, and I had heard stories from numerous people who saw other screenings of it, and they told me that was the kind of, what you just described, and what I saw had been happening over and over. So it was very gratifying.
Well, it was a good bit too, I mean, it was just at the right time, and we still needed to be shocked at that point. And I think that was kind of the whole package of not only Skinner, but just the fact that the sort of hits kept on coming, and then there you were. And I think that people responded really well to that.
Why didn't they go to Skinner in the first place?
Because we had to bring Exhibit into it, Exactly.
Because then we wouldn't have had that response.
Well, going beyond X-Files, you've had quite a filmography since then. Have you tried to move past Skinner, or go as far away from Skinner as you possibly could? And to that same effect, has there been a character that you've played recently that's that you've really enjoyed, or that's really spoken to you?
I haven't consciously made an effort to move away from Skinner. I as a matter of fact, when I went in and read for Dallas, my only meeting for Dallas, Michael Robin, I didn't. Everybody else was dressed in suits, because the guy is a power guy. He's in suits, he's money, he's rich, he's ruthless, blah blah blah. When I went in, I just wore jeans, cowboy boots, and an Oxford shirt, and I said, I see everybody else wearing suits, and I'm sorry. Michael goes, no, we've seen you in a suit. we don't need it. So, I haven't tried to, in this business, especially in this business now, with you've got so many film actors coming into TV, and work is hard to come by, and so so when you get, even though I've been doing it for 30 years, it's still, man, I go into an audition and I see some faces of people that have been working as long or longer than I have, who are as recognizable or more recognizable than I am, and I'm like, it's good to work, So I have not tried to say, no, I'm not going to play that character. It's too much like Skinner. I haven't played that. I don't think I've played that many characters like Skinner since the show. Probably, if I was going to pick a character that has been a standout for me, it would probably be I don't know if you saw the episode that I did of Criminal Minds, where he played a character named Norman Hill.
I have not. I'm sorry. No.
You haven't seen it. Yeah,
okay, I will, for sure.
Check it out. It's very different. It's called, the episode is called Normal. It's very, very different. It's probably one of the best roles that I've ever had. because it was so different from what I had played or from my own personality. That it was such a treat to play, and it was. I mean, when I watch it now, it affects me. I don't, and usually when I watch my own performances, I'm aware that I'm watching myself acting. This is probably one of the few times that I haven't experienced that. I didn't even think about it being me, and it was. It was a lot of fun, and
I
I was
will.
very
I will,
happy.
for
But
sure.
you
I
check it
haven't.
out if you
I've not
can.
been keeping up in the last couple of years with the old procedural dramas, but when there's special things like that, that makes me want to go check it out. So I definitely will. Last question here.
Yeah,
Beyond Dallas, which are you still working on Dallas right now? You guys are so far ahead, right?
I'm a
Series regular. Okay.
series regular now.
Do you have what's that?
Yeah, I just signed the contract. I just signed the contract not long ago, and I'm moving down on the 12th. I've got an apartment down there. I'll be moving down to Dallas for
There are worse
the next
places
five
you could
six
go.
months. Well, they do have the West Nile virus going on pretty hot and heavy there right now. So hopefully it's gonna have abated by the time
Well,
that
I grew up
I
in
get down
Houston,
there.
so there's definitely
Um,
a Houston-Dallas rivalry. But Texas in general, you got, and you went to UT, right?
UT. I came out here from Austin. So this is and I actually one of the first jobs I ever had when I was living in Austin. I used to drive up to Dallas, and I used to work as a background extra on Dallas. And when the first scene that I had this time around, Linda Gray came up to me. She goes, "We're so excited to have you on the show," and she goes, "I'm a big fan." And I said, "Honey, I used to stand behind you as an extra 30 years ago on this show in this town." She goes, "Oh my gosh," she's just like about died. But yeah, so I started as an extra, and then I had a little bitty part in another episode with Patrick Duffy and Priscilla Presley. And then when I moved out to LA, I had a 4 episode arc that I worked with Larry Hagman quite a bit. So I've actually got quite a history with this show. So to be able to come full circle and be working on it again is a real treat for me. Plus, I get to be on
I
Texas. I
mean, there
love
really is no
Texas.
better place.
Yeah, it's
You
great.
got
It's
anything else
great.
going
I
on
love it.
beyond that you'd like to talk about?
I don't. There's a couple of projects that I don't. Very superstitious, and I don't like to talk about things until I'm standing in front of the camera and it's rolling. But for right now, my focus is on Dallas, and I'm looking forward to headed down there. My wife and daughter are staying here. I'm sad about that, but my daughter's in school, and I don't want to pull her out. So, but if we go more than past the second season, then they'll be definitely coming down there because I'm too old to be living as a
Well, and
bachelor for
everyone
long.
loves Texas. There's always plenty to do, and you go down to the stockyards and have a good time, and even the kids love that. So. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much for talking to
yeah.
me. This has been such a treat, and I know that all of Frank's fans and people out there will love to see this and love to know that what you got going on, and we'll pimp Dallas for you. It's a summer show, right, on TNT?
You know what? It's on TNT. This year it was a summer show, but they're coming back in January now. We're doing 15 episodes. We're doing more episodes, so they're gonna start back up in
Awesome.
airing it again in January. And we start shooting September 24th. So it's
Excellent.
coming up
Well,
quick.
anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I'd just like to. This is
Yes.
Frank's. This is Frank's website, and I adore Frank. He's one of my favorite people in the world. Every year, it's like I get an email from him telling me happy birthday, and it's like he's just the sweetest man that I think I have ever had the good fortune of meeting and working with, and just know that to the people who are his fans that you've got a great person that you're looking after there. So. Um,
Excellent. Perfect. Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for chatting with me, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat again soon.